2022 council meeting. Roll call, please.
Alderman Byer. Here. Randall.
Here.
Lars. Matkey.
Here.
Niles.
Here.
Schrader.
Here.
Teeter. Here. Tully.
Here. Okay, item number 2, public participation. Anyone wishing to speak, please state your name and come to the podium. Reason for speaking. Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Item number 3, we'll have a presentation for our fiscal year 2023 budget with Finance Director Stewart. You're up.
All right. I know Tim promised me that I would give a really long presentation tonight, but I'm a little more brief than he is, so it's probably going to be a little shorter, so
More interesting than I am.
hope you're okay with that. So a lot of the slides that we'll go through tonight, Tim actually presented at the last meeting, so we'll go through most of those kind of quickly. There's a few new ones which I'll spend a little more time on and maybe give you some information that we didn't provide last week. And hopefully this works from right here. Oh, yep, okay, thank you. I actually tested that earlier, and of course. So we can start talking until she can get that up and running. So we're at our final step in the budget process. Obviously, the first part of the process is the department heads bringing in their budgets to Tim and myself. Tim kind of going through them, talking with department heads, getting them down to where we anticipate they need to be. Then we take them to finance committee. We had our finance budget workshop, and we bring it to council. So at this time, all of our numbers that we control are completely set. There are several that we use to complete our tax rate, and those, so we've got a few things that we haven't received on that, and we'll see that in one of the future slides. We'll go ahead and go. All right, so this was a slide that Tim had last time for you. So basically the best thing to see on here is that we're anticipating a surplus at year end. So our 22 budget is performing well. We typically are very conservative on what we do. Our revenues will kind of try to keep them on the more conservative side, a little bit lower than we might have come in, and expenses usually a little bit overestimated. So at year end, we anticipate that we'll be sitting probably how we have been in other previous fiscal years. And at this point, it looks about 113,000 surplus. Hopefully, we're a little bit better than that. All right, so this is also another slide that Tim presented to you. So the overall budget was a 1.3% increase, and I think last year's was 1.34, so we're kind of right where we were last year. It amounts to about a $57,000 increase, and of that, $45,000 is for our debt service. So we did take on some new debt this year. Our debt payments increased, and so of that $57,000, about $45,000 of that is actually for our debt. So our actual spending really didn't go up a lot from last year. Go ahead. Once again, another one that Tim presented last time. However, there's some numbers in here that were fairly new when he presented. The one that I'd like to touch on is the 94% of full market value. So we do pay to have an assessing service come through and assess all the properties in the city. Our goal is to get real close to 100%, which means that our assessed value that we place on all the homes in the city of Jefferson is what the state says it should be. So the state's saying that our value should be more than what our assessor assessed our properties at. This is the second year in a row where we've kind of landed at that 94% mark. So I did have a talk with them a while ago, well last year, and then again today I actually spoke with Amanda from Accurate. And she said what keeps happening is the commercial properties, the sale information that the state has is very strong. It's information that our assessors don't actually have when they place values on our properties. The estimated values that the state are going to use become available at the end of June. Our board review is always at the end of the May or the beginning of June, and that's kind of a statutory time period of when you're supposed to do it. She said that she's seeing a trend in the municipalities that they serve at Accurate, that they are asking for a waiver at the state to hold their board review later so that they can get those commercial values in. So this is something that the council could consider as maybe holding off having that board review meeting until the end of June instead of the beginning of June to hopefully capture some of those commercial values so we can get closer to that 100%. She said last year, not not just in the city of Jefferson, but in other municipalities they serve, they saw the state take a huge jump in commercial properties that they didn't anticipate. So this year, they took those numbers and they added about 8% to them, and they're still low. So this is something we can talk about. I know Sarah works with Accurate to set that, and I know there's additional paperwork for missing the statutory deadline. But she said this is definitely a trend that municipalities are following, is pushing that board review off to the end of the month. So might be something to look forward. There is a benefit to having that closer to 100%. I think it makes it a lot easier to explain the tax rate and things to the public when everything is apples to apples. Just for a little bit of your information, I did ask for a bit of a breakdown. They said the average increase for residential was somewhere between 13 to 18%. So they averaged it at about 14.76 overall. Condos went up about 15%, and commercial, they put up about 8% from last year, which we obviously know is not high enough. So we can have future discussions about that. And that's pretty much all kind of need to speak about on that one, because I know Tim is close, kind of covered the rest of it. The next sheet is where we're going to fall with our tax rate. So the 21 column is what our tax rates were last year, and then the column to the left, the mill rate in thousands, you can see the city of Jefferson right there at $7.01. That's down about 80 cents from last year, about 10.25% lower. The things that we know on this sheet are the city of Jefferson tax rate if you adopt it tonight. We know that the county levy has not been submitted to us yet. We know that the school district is included in here, and the technical college is included in here. So there's some unknowns here. We also don't know any of our credits. Those will come a lot closer to the end of November. So until that time, we won't be able to calculate any tax bills. So we're just missing a few crucial pieces of information. The one thing that doesn't change is where the city would fall with their tax rate. Any questions on that one? So for the fiscal year 23 budget, it shows that our spending is slightly decreased, about $662,000. Last year, or this year in 22, we had two large projects, one being the downtown project and one being the alley project. Those alone kind of make up the difference in these numbers. Even though we're picking up some spending and doing some projects this year, those were large projects last year. This is just kind of a replay of how the different funds performed from year to year to year. More of an informational slide. I know this was previously provided to you, so we won't touch on this too much. All right, so now to the assumptions in the 23 budget. So the most important thing is that in 23, City of Jefferson residents will get the same services that they got in 22. There is nothing being cut. There's also nothing being added. So there's no new positions, but no department is losing positions. This budget implements a 3% increase in the budget, as well as some additional funds in the miscellaneous line items. Tim, in the next coming meetings, will be bringing to you the comp plan that was just done. As you can imagine, the city is really behind the market. You've seen that with your recent hires, that we just don't fit in our current comp plan anymore. He'll be bringing that forward, and the council will be given some options as to how they want to look at implementing that with a variety of choices. We'll have a consultant kind of guide you into what they're seeing in most municipalities when they go to implement, but that will be a conversation in itself. The Police Association's contract was ratified at 2% in January with 2% in July, is that correct?
Yeah.
Health insurance, we did have to change plans this year. It didn't change insurance companies, but we changed plans. We were in a loose consortium with the county, and because of the experience in Dodge County and Jefferson County, our rates were going to take a huge jump. I think you guys had like 3 or 4 options as to different insurances, and really the best plan for the city was to go with a standalone policy with Dean. So our costs were, I mean, not great, but we're in the 7 to 8% range for an increase for next year, which all in all isn't affordable. The current budget also does provide for some subsidy to the deductible on the plan. That's held at the same level as last year, which was down from the previous year. As we stated, there's no new positions this year, so this sheet looks very similar, if not identical to last year. So the assumptions and highlights for our '23 budget is we have in our miscellaneous contingency, we have about $34,000 that can be used for anything. So if, when you guys look at the comp plan, you decide you want to redirect some funds towards compensation for employees, you do have that flexibility. The next part is our expenditure restraint, and for those of you that aren't as clear on this, the state basically provides an incentive for municipalities. You control your spending, and we give you a carrot with extra money. And this extra money is great. So I think for this year it was about $122,000. So that's huge. Last year it was $132,000. This year it's crazy. I think this is the highest cost that we could go, highest percentage we've ever been able to go up. I looked back, and the highest I could find prior to this year was in '09. We were at 5.9, and this time we're actually at 7.9. So it's just huge. As far as levy limits, it's like impossible to go up that 7.9%. But it's crazy. I've never seen it so high. And so what you can pretty much count on is because of levy limits, almost every municipality is going to be able to qualify for ERP next year. It's a set pot of money that gets divided among the municipalities that participate. More municipalities are going to be able to participate, so that pot of money is going to go down. So we're planning on $106,000 for '23, and I would say for '24 it's probably going to go down again. So the fiscal year '23 budget assumptions and highlights, you can see that we have an increase of about $201,000 or 3% going from '22 to '23. That is in the overall spending, which includes our capital, our library, and everything in between to the general fund. Our net transfers come in at $771 this year, and it's anticipated at $718 next year. That does include about a $45,000 increase in debt service, or $42,900 in debt service. But we also have an additional subsidy from the sewer utility to compensate the general fund for the tasks that it does for them. They don't have a separate office or separate office staff for payroll, AP. We do that all up here. So there's some compensation that comes back from the utility for those services. All right, so these are our public charters and services this year. So we aren't anticipating really any increases for water, electric, storm, sanitary. The one place that you know already is the refuse and recycling, and that is actually contractual, so we have an agreement with them that they can do this, and they cited about a 9.55% increase this year for labor, fuel costs, and parts, and then kind of everything else, like everybody else. So that is the one thing that we will be passing on. Slides are ones that you have had already multiple times because they involve our capital projects. So we're anticipating about a little over $2 million in spending this year. The majority of the funds will all be spent within the capital project fund. It would be utilizing the current tax base as well as some fund balance we built up in there, and some, I think we have some debt proceeds that might still be spent out in '23 as well. Some of the projects we'll be doing is roofs at like JFAC and at Public Works. We've got some improvements at BW. We've got play structure at Rock River Landing, well 3 upgrades. We have equipment that goes everywhere from squads, pickups, cardiac monitors, software upgrades, computer upgrades. So we have a lot of capital in the budget, which is good because departments are getting the equipment that they need. And we haven't had to increase taxes because of this, because we've had this solid amount of money constantly like budgeted in the budget. Which we're fortunate, because a lot of other municipalities had to gut their capital plan just to fund their operations. The next few slides you have seen before, so we won't go over those. So this one we'll spend a little more time on because this is something that Tim didn't cover last week. So this is the statutory debt limit for the city. So this, to kind of break down this slide, The city's debt capacity is about 37 million, and we're at about 9.5 right now. So we have a lot of capacity. We've always scheduled our payments pretty aggressively, so most of them are all paid off within 10 years. And our debt capacity is obviously really positive. If Cindy can flip ahead to the next, kind of just a pictorial thing if you're more visual. One more. This is just another type of graph, but it shows one in the middle there in that light green color. And that's where the city's self-imposed debt limit is. So we can go up to that top line. The city says we're not going to go above the middle green line. This is one thing that's helped us in our rating along with our positive fund balance when we go to issue debt. So these are things like that the rating agencies look at, and that is a plan that we put in place shortly, I think, after Tim got here. So we've had this in place for quite some time. So this one is pretty much showing that we have a very strong fund balance. So that orange line in the middle there is our undesignated, and that's also very positive for our bond rating. We want to stay right in that kind of that sweet spot there. We have adequate funds to do with what we need. And then that gap between the orange and the red is kind of what you guys designate every year at audit time. So we say, you know what, we have this much. What are our projects that we want to look at? Our emergency funding in case we have a flood or other event that we can't anticipate at budget time. Let's see here. So here's our equalized value trend. As you all know, especially if you were in the housing market, it's crazy. So this year, our valuation went up 86 million, which was 13%, which is crazy. You can see the line's going quite straight upward. I was kind of interested to see where we're at. I know Toby has a better feed on this, but I looked at the Wisconsin Realtors Association, and they had about 14 years of data on there, which I found pretty interesting. I found that last year we had a high amount of, the highest amount of home sales since the 14 years that was on there at 91,000, a little over 91,000. And if you just take South Central Wisconsin, it actually gets a little bit stronger than that. And if you look at this year through September, which is the most recent data that they have, we've had about 61,000 homes sold. If you take and average that out throughout the year, it looks like we'll probably be in the low 80s. And if you look back historically, that takes us back to about 2015. So the market is definitely slowing. If you do go more centralized to South Central Wisconsin, you'll see that that data is a little bit stronger. You'll find that the home values are still selling for way more than they did last year. And you'll find that that sales data is a little bit stronger down here than statewide. All right, so these are the takeaways. So this year's budget, the number one thing is that we're preserving our current level of service. The next important thing is that our city tax rate, if you adopt it tonight, is proposed to drop 80 cents, which is about 10%. There is no significant increases to public charges, with the exception of recycling and refuse, which is contractual and then obviously passed on to the end user. We have $2 million in capital projects planned, which puts us in a great place for doing some great projects and improvements within the city. And we haven't had to use any fund balance to subsidize this budget. Future concerns or things that I think we need to look forward to is obviously the employee compensation, which Tim will be bringing forward in the next couple of meetings. And then recruitment and retention, just like in pretty much any job sector right now. It is primarily real bad in the public safety arena right now, but it's something across the city that is obviously a concern of administration and department heads, and I know will also be a concern of yours as well. Any questions?
I told you she was more interesting than me.
We all know that.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, I just want to say one thing. If, you know, the business of municipal finance has gotten fairly complex from when I first started, and it's really hard to get your arms around how we all make it work. And Tanya showed you that slide with all these different funds that we use to account for our operations. And I would strip it down really easy for you if you you don't quite understand how it all works, but you really would like a snapshot of the fiscal health of the community, really look at the last three things that she talked about. Where's the city's debt in relation to its ability to borrow debt? What's its equalized value trend? And then what's its fund balance trend? And we always hope to make, a lot of those things just incrementally go up. And so when you issue debt and you're going in front of Moody's investment analysts to get a bond rating, those are the things that they're really looking at is kind of like what's the trend, and that nice incremental approach is what we always try to shoot for. And the one thing Tanya didn't tell you is that, so the city's bond rating is a AA3, and I can tell you, typically, you would not, in a community our size, have, AA rated debt. We'd be probably somewhere in the single A range, but because of the fund balance we carry, relatively attractive debt burden, and just that equalized value trend, we're able to, sneak into that AA rated debt, which typically is reserved for communities that, are double the size or triple the size of Jefferson. So, I always say, if you wanted a quick snapshot, just focus on those three areas and kind of get the impression of where the city's at financially. Thank you very much, Tanya, it's very good.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you. Good job.
Capital project and equipment, storm sewer utility, wastewater utility budgets, and adoption of the 2023 general, special funds, public library, refuse and recycling, capital project and equipment, storm, and wastewater utility budgets. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Please indicate yea or nay as Sarah calls your name.
Alderwoman Brandel.
Yay.
Mackey.
Aye.
Niles. Schrader.
Aye.
Teeter.
Aye.
Aye.
Tully. Fire. Aye.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order, this public hearing to order, and we'll have a reading of the notice of public hearing by City Administrator Freitag.
City of Jefferson notice of public hearing on 2023 city budget as required by Wisconsin statute section 65.90 paren 3. Notice is hereby given that the Common Council of the City of Jefferson will hold a public hearing on the proposed 2023 city budget on 15 November 2022 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the Jefferson City Hall at 317 South Main Street, Jefferson, Wisconsin. Interested persons are invited to attend the public hearing. Citizens will be given an opportunity to present both written and oral comments and ask questions regarding the proposed budget. The proposed budget in detail is available for inspection at the City Administration Office from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, or online at www.jeffersonwis.com. Tanya presented really a nice summary of the budget, and the notice was published in the Daily Union October 24, 2022.
Okay, moving on, item C, well, a brief explanation of the 2023 budget by the City Administrator.
Nothing more to say.
Nothing more to add there. At this time, we'll have public participation. Any person wishing to be heard, please state your name, address, and reason for appearing. Seeing none, we'll close public participation, and we'll close this hearing. We need a motion.
Yeah. Move to close the public hearing. Second.
Motion's been made and second. Please indicate yea or nay as Sarah calls your name.
Alderman Mackey.
Aye.
Niles.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Teeter.
Aye.
Tully.
Aye.
Fire. Aye. Brandel.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Moving on to resolution number 57, a resolution to adopt the 2023 general special funds, public library, refuse and recycling, capital project and equipment, storm sewer utility, and wastewater utility budgets. I will introduce that. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Jefferson that the 2023 general fund budget attached here too, and the 2023 budgets for special funds, public library, recycling, refuse, capital project and equipment, storm sewer utility, and the wastewater treatment utility are hereby adopted. And be it further resolved that any budgetary figures stipulated in the municipal code shall be amended to reflect changes authorized in the municipal budget. I would so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Please indicate your vote as Sarah calls her name.
Alderwoman Niles.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Teeter.
Aye.
Tully.
Aye.
Meyer. Aye. Randall.
Aye.
Mackey.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Resolution number 58, a resolution approving the 2022 tax rate and 2022 tax levy to be introduced by Alderwoman Niles.
Thank you, President Tully, council members, residents of Jefferson. City of Jefferson Resolution Number 58. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Jefferson that the 2022 General Fund Property Tax Levy for municipal services in 2023 in the amount of $3,466,350 and the 2022 Public Library Fund Levy for 2023 service in the amount of $456,900, and the 2022 Capital Project and Equipment Fund Levy for 2023 in the amount of $708,650 is hereby approved. And be it therefore resolved that the following tax rate is hereby adopted. For the City of Jefferson, 7014350,578. I so move.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Randall. Any further discussion?
I just have one question, and maybe I heard it wrong. Was that John's that's going up? Don't we always get a contract? Is that in the contract?
It's in the contract that they can do that.
Okay, that was my only question.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, please indicate your vote as Sarah calls your name.
Alderman Schrader.
Aye.
Teeter.
Aye.
Tully.
Aye.
Meyer. Aye. Randall.
Aye.
Mackey.
Aye.
Niles.
Aye.
Resolution number 59, tonight's consent agenda. This will be introduced by Alderman Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I have a question for the attorney. I wasn't here at the last meeting. We intend to abstain from voting on the minutes.
You can still make the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Just can't vote on it.
Okay,
And you certainly have every right to read the resolution into the record.
thank you, sir. Resolution number 59, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Jefferson, Wisconsin, that the consent agenda for November 15th, 2022 is hereby adopted. Vouchers payable for November 2022 in the amount of $208,818.60. Summary for November 4th, 2022 in the amount of $163,574.87. B, council minutes from the November 1, 2022 meeting of the Common Council. And licenses as approved by the Regulatory Committee, operators licenses, there was one.
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Motion's been made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please indicate your vote as Sarah calls your name.
Alderwoman Teeter.
Aye.
Tully.
Aye.
Meyer. Aye. Randall.
Aye.
Mackey.
Aye.
Niles.
Aye.
Schrader.
Abstain.
Moving on to resolution number 60, a resolution approving the years 2023 and 2024 agreement with the Jefferson Professional Police Association, local number 115 in the city of Jefferson, to be introduced by Alderman Mackey.
Thank you, President Tully. City of Jefferson, resolution number 60, whereas the current collective bargaining agreement between the City of Jefferson and the Jefferson Professional Police Association, Local 115, expires at the end of day 12/31/22, and whereas both parties have negotiated a tentative agreement for a successor agreement covering years 2023, 2024, and whereas the membership of Local 115 has voted to ratify a tentative agreement, and whereas the Finance Committee has reviewed the tentative agreement and is recommending its ratification to the City Council, and now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Jefferson, Wisconsin, that it herein ratifies and approves the tentative agreement for the successor collective bargaining agreement with the city, with the Jefferson Professional Police Association for the years 2023 and 2024. The tentative agreement provides the following wage adjustment, year 2023, on 1/1/23, a 2% increase across the board, and on 7/01/23, a wage increase of 2% across the board. For year 2024, wage reopened to bargain wages, be it further resolved by the city council that the city administrator is authorized to execute a collective bargaining agreement on behalf of the city of Jefferson. I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? We discussed this in finance and it was unanimous, obviously. Okay. Please indicate your vote as Sarah calls your name.
Alderman Tully.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Randall.
Aye.
Mackey.
Aye.
Niles. Schrader.
Aye.
Teeter.
Aye.
All right, entertaining a motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
Motion's been made and second. On a voice vote? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, Mr. Mayor.
Good.